Hello. Okay. So, good morning, all of you. 1 minute. So, let us start, students. I was discussing about expert systems in yesterday's class. So what we were discussing in yesterday's class was what is an expert system shell, right? So, what is an expert system shell is expert system shell is basically like a control program where you can basically it's basically your main part of your program or your main logic of the program, right? So you can have different knowledge bases and there can be modifications to the knowledge bases, but it would not require recompilation of your control program. So basically your control program or your main logic of the program that may not require to be changed if you are modifying your knowledge base, right? So that is an expert system shell. So expert system shell can be thought of as an empty bucket where you can fill with different knowledge bases. So when your database changes, your database of knowledge changes, it does not mean that your logic or your basically your inference engine mechanism or your control program that will change. It will not require any recompilation. So that is an expert system shell. For example, when you talk about machine learning, because ML is these days it's used very popularly. When you talk about machine learning is all about building a good prediction method. So you have a classification method which you are building. So basically, you have a certain set of you call it as a training set basically, and that is nothing but a set of input output pairs. So you have basically for certain applications, like if you want to do classification, you build a kind of a training set where you have certain kind of input output pairs, like if this is the particular image, then this is the image of this particular feature, and if this is image, this is the image of this particular feature, like this. So you have image as an input and feature as an output, so you have a tag to each of these inputs. Now you are able to learn from that these are the patterns in my data. So now when a new data comes, you are able to predict the output of that also. So it does not depend upon your control program or your method of training. Whenever you are changing the data set, your training method will not change. Even if you use large data set or small data sets, it is not basically affecting your methodology of training, right? So when you are training or you're basically building a classification algorithm in order to predict the, or you can, if you want to make a classification on a new data, that will not be basically affected by that data will not affect the classification algorithm. So that is the meaning in the case of machine learning algorithms or in the case of ML, right? So expert system shells are basically general mechanisms. You can apply it in any field, right? So expert system shell, for example, if you talk about a simple normal C program, you have a sorting algorithm and you have a list of items to sort. So that list of items to sort can be integers, floating point numbers, or characters, or double, any particular data type. So it does not depend upon the type of data type that your particular sorting algorithm will be affected. So sorting algorithm will remain same irrespective of the data items to which you are feeding, right? So that expert system shell is remaining constant irrespective of the kind of rules which you are executing. For example, in the case of machine learning, you are using the input output pairs to build a training set, and that training set is basically your classification algorithm learns certain rules that if this kind of input is there, then this kind of output will be there, right? So it is, the rules will change depending upon the data set, but the algorithm which is generating those rules, that will not change. So that algorithm is basically your expert system shell. So there are many advantages of using a shell in an expert system. So you can basically apply this expert system shells to solve diverse problems, right? You don't have to change the configuration. You don't have to change the configuration, or you don't have to change your control program. So changing So if you change the rules of a system, it can bring out certain changes in the program behavior, right? Your output will be affected depending upon the input, but actually your underlying component will not be affected. The underlying component or your inference engine where you are making the main code of your program, that will not get affected. So we have three components of an expert system, which we did in the last class. Like we have a user interface, we have a knowledge base, and we have an inference engine. So when you talk about expert system shells, you are talking about the inference engine component of expert systems. So there are many advantages of using an expert system shell for designing an expert system. You can design an intelligent system by coding a particular program in the kernel and all the required information regarding some particular field or some particular data that you can fill. So that information is basically independent, and that intelligent system is not dependent on that information. So your instructions can be coded by a person who has got some experience of coding, right? So you can that person can design the code, and intelligent system will be acting like a builder tool. So it will be building upon, and it will act as a bridge to code that knowledge which you have gathered into a format which is basically you can exploit that knowledge to answer your questions or to make a decision or to make a classification like this. So basically expert system shells are generic structures which are, you can say, which are your main logic of the program or your main component in which you can feed any kind of knowledge and it will give you an answer. So the knowledge processing component will not change. So that is basically your control program that will not change. Only your database of knowledge changes. So your knowledge is separate from the control program. So that is one thing which is very important about an expert system shell. Then how do we acquire knowledge in an expert system? So knowledge is basically very important because your knowledge has to be authentic and specific. If you are building an expert system, when your knowledge is authentic and very specific, then you can get the accurate results. So depending upon your input, you will get the correct outputs. So knowledge acquisition is very important in an expert system. So there are three important elements of knowledge. For example, you have statistics, information, and previous exposure. So basically, statistics means certain parameters of knowledge, and then information means you are having some current information about that particular system which you are trying to do. For example, if you are trying to classify something into, for example, if you are doing a face recognition application, so in the face recognition application you will have some information, or you can have some data sets of faces of different people. So that will be your information. Previous exposure would be that the different postures in which that person might be having, and that we have clicked those photographs, so that will be the previous exposure. So that basically information would be your face of the person, previous exposure would be the data set which you have already gathered for the different gestures of the same person, right? And the statistics would be certain statistical parameters. For example, how many gestures do you want to consider for a particular person, so that your classification algorithm will give accurate results. So it would be basically some kind of statistical parameters, like how many gestures do you want to consider, how many iterations do you want your classification algorithm to go so as to produce a correct result. So certain statistical parameters, that will be basically the knowledge component. Now, knowledge is basically divided into two categories. So you have a knowledge base which is divided into two categories: heuristic and algorithmic. Heuristic means there is heuristic and there is algorithmic knowledge. Algorithmic knowledge is basically your facts. So whatever facts you already have, even whatever facts are existing in your database of knowledge as a declarative sentence or as a fact, that is your algorithmic knowledge. Heuristic knowledge is inferential knowledge. So basically, when you are able to infer some new facts from that existing set of facts, so that becomes your heuristic knowledge. So basically, major portion of your knowledge base is heuristic in nature, because you are able to infer some new facts from the existing set of facts, and that is your ability to draw inferences and then come up with some kind of new facts which can help you to accurately work, to work more accurately, or it will increase the performance of the system because you have different new set of facts. So heuristic knowledge is very important in the case of expert systems because it forms an important component of a knowledge base. So knowledge is basically extracted from human experts initially. So if you want to formulate the knowledge base of an expert system, initially it will be extracted from some texts or journals or some database. So basically from some human expert. Then this knowledge will go into the expert system. Basically the expert system, you can think it as a machine which is having an inlet through which an expert of a certain domain feeds in the knowledge, right? And then this knowledge passes through the inference engine. So your knowledge passes through the inference engine, and this inference engine will train the expert system. So this inference engine will train the expert system, and it will rather help it to understand the knowledge fed into it. So the inference engine would be basically used to understand that knowledge, and it will be processing that knowledge. So this processed knowledge coming out from the inference machine is then made available to the people. So basically through a user interface. So that is basically available through a user through a user interface. So you can have an app. Expert system can interact with the public through a mobile app, through any kind of apps which are available. So at the back end, you always have an inference engine, which is the main processor. You can say it's the main processor of your information. So knowledge is at first extracted from human experts. Then the AI expert will process that knowledge, right? That AI expert will process that knowledge, and that processed knowledge would basically become your knowledge base. Through that knowledge base, you will be able to, that inference engine will work on the knowledge base in order to answer questions. And then the basically your predictions or your decisions or your answers, that will be communicated through a user interface to the user. So basically, these are the different components of an expert system. So, like humans learn, expert systems also learn. So there are different ways of learning in the case of expert system. So there are 5, 6 categories of learning in the case of an expert system. So these are very popular among machine learning researchers. So actually, when you talk about machine learning, also this is a very important ways of learning. These terms will actually occur in ML courses also. If you talk about your machine learning courses, these learning strategies would be there in your ML courses also. So these are very recent and very popular actually. So just give me 1 minute, students. So we have different kinds of learning methods which are also popular in machine learning also. First one learning is learning by memorizing. So learning by memorizing, as the name tells you, that it is basically you are memorizing some facts. It's also called as rote learning. Learning by memorizing, that is also called as rote learning. It is the simplest form of learning basically. So what you are doing here is you are remembering some things, and whenever that information is asked, you are just giving that information. For example, you are remembering the hexadecimal conversion of a number. Whenever you ask a question, you will convert and you will get this hexadecimal number, right? right? For example, if you get another binary number, you know that this is the hexadecimal conversion. So you have remembered, you have learned that this is the hexadecimal conversion for this number. So when that number comes, you can instantly give the answer. So it is memorizing. So that is one way. Other way is through direct instruction. So direct instruction means that knowledge is converted into a form which is operational in nature. Like you can use that knowledge to infer some, you can use that knowledge to answer the questions. You have stored that as a knowledge base, and when facts are basically organized and they are present in an organized manner, so you can use those facts to answer queries. Third one is bringing in analogy. So analogical learning. It's basically analogical learning. So analogical learning is learning or inferring new concepts from a given set of knowledge. So you have previously stored knowledge that will act as a guide in solving the problem of a new concept. So you have some previously stored knowledge that will be used as a guide. And when a new problem comes, you can use that knowledge to answer the questions. Then inductive knowledge or inductive learning. So inductive learning or learning through induction. So that is basically you have certain examples of some kind of concept, and you generalize that concept after learning from a number of examples of that concept. So you have certain examples of a concept, and then from all those examples, something common is coming up. So that something common would be your generalization of the concept. So you generalize the concept, right? So induction, you might have all might have studied in your maths courses. So if you are basically using inductive learning, that is basically you have certain 10 or 15 examples, let us say, and from those examples you are coming up with something common. So you predict, when you have a new example which is of the same kind as those 10 examples, you can predict that what will be the output for that example, or what will be the prediction. So basically it is generalizing a concept based on a certain set of examples. And then deductive learning, that we have already done. Deductive learning is basically you are deducing something from an existing set of facts or rules. For example, if you remember in your knowledge representation techniques, when I was telling you about resolution process, so resolution process was also deductive learning only. We had certain rules and facts with us, and using those rules and facts, you were deducing new rules and facts. So basically deductive learning is a series of deductive steps are there, and using some facts which are already present in the knowledge base, you are able to predict some new facts or rules. So basically, if you see this diagram, inductive and deductive learning is explained nicely over here. If you see the left hand side, examples are there, right? And from these examples, you may have multiple examples of the same concept. Now, if you have the same different examples of the same concept and all of them are having certain similar characteristics, right? So through induction, you can figure out an approximating function for all of them. This approximating function would be telling you what are the common characteristics for that particular all the examples. Now approximating function would be kind of common characteristics which are there for that particular concept, and then you can basically deduce the value of a function at a particular point of interest when a new function comes, basically. Fine. So at a particular point of interest, basically. So if a new point of interest comes, you can basically figure out that what will be the value of this function at a new particular point through deduction, because you already have an approximating function with you. So deduction is with your approximating function, can you deduce the new values easily? That is deduction. If you can go directly from the examples to the prediction, that is called as transduction. If you have a series of examples of a particular concept, and directly from that series of examples you can predict, you are basically at the back end, you are predicting an approximating function or a common characteristics, and then when your new input comes, you can predict the output directly for that new input. So that is called as transduction. From examples, you are predicting the common characteristics, and then you are finding out that what are the characteristics. So when a new input comes, you can apply those characteristics and get the output. So that is nothing but the value of a function at a particular point of interest. So that is called as transduction. So this is inductive and deductive learning. So these are different kinds of learning which you will also study in your neural networks also. If we go for the topic of formal learning theory, there also these techniques will come. So this learning part is of 5 types, and this is important and very popular in many domains. Then we have the inferencing process of expert systems. So basically, your it's basically a reasoning engine, right? So that is an inference engine. So it will take the query of the user as input, and it will respond to the task through a user interface. So this is the main thing which is there in an expert system, and there is a knowledge base, and that knowledge base is containing the information which is already present in the database. Now, this inferencing process is basically made up of three stages. There are three recursive stages over here: test, choose, and function. So, test stage is basically a stage where you are having your working memory. So, your contents of your basically your knowledge base, basically. So, your contents of your active workspace are tested with the information contained in the information base. So, basically, your testing a phase is testing against your knowledge base. Then choosing phase is basically choosing from a set of rules. So your knowledge base, as I told you, your knowledge base could be a kind of a in a machine learning example, if you see, it would be a kind of a knowledge base would be a kind of a rule based system where you will be able to generate certain rules, that which kind of input is getting which kind of outputs. So it will be a rule based architecture in the knowledge base finally. So your choose stage would do what? It will basically choose that which rule you should apply. So it will try to match the rules. When a new input comes, it will try to match it with the rules, and it's basically called as a conflict set. That set of rules is called as a conflict set. So it will choose from the conflict set a particular rule, right? And then it will apply that particular rule to predict the output for that new input. So that function stage is basically the stage where you are applying that rule, and that rule is basically applied to get the output for the new input. So basically this inference process is used when you have a new input and you want the output for that new input. So you already have some input output pairs which are there in the knowledge base, and from that you have predicted certain rules. So you know that if these kind of inputs are there, this should be the output. If these kind of inputs are there, this should be the output, like this. So you are building a kind of a rule based system, and these rules are contained in a conflict set. So whenever a new input comes, you try to match it, that which rule you should apply from the conflict set. Then you select a rule and you execute that rule in the function stage, and it will give you the output. So basically, expert system is meant for answering a query. It directly interacts with the user through a user interface. So it can be any query. So that is why it can be a new input also, which the system doesn't know. So it has to predict some patterns, and therefore it generates some rules. Using those rules, you predict the output for a new input. So that was the main mechanism of expert systems. Now, different applications of expert systems. So expert systems are majorly used in different applications, like in process control and monitoring. Uh, so one thing is clear from up till now here, students. One thing I would like to highlight again, that expert systems are basically mainly the inference engine is rule based, based on rule based architecture. Okay, so we have non-rule based systems also, like we have semantic networks, frames. Those representations are already also there, but generally in an expert system we use a rule based architecture. So it is a most common expert system architecture. So we model all these knowledge base in the form of certain rules, and that forms our conflict set. So we can choose a particular rule when a new input comes and apply that rule to get the output. Okay, so this is the main concept of an expert system, to use a rule based architecture. Now, now basically there are, when you are doing the inferencing, that thing I think I left off. When you are doing the inferencing in an expert system, that inferencing process is also of two types. So you can do a forward reasoning, or you can do a backward reasoning. So basically, you have already done this forward reasoning and backward reasoning. It's also the similar concepts are forward chaining and backward chaining. So what we do in forward chaining, the expert system would consider all the facts and rules, and it will test them accordingly to arrive at a solution, right? So it will start with the facts and rules and apply the rules to get a solution. In backward chaining, it will try to start with a result which you want to get, and it will try to find out that how you will get that particular result. So it will, given a result, it will move back, right? So given a result, it will move back using the same set of rules and facts to find out the conditions that has caused the result. And then it will basically give an explanation to the user that how that reasoning process worked, and it will try to go to the facts through the reverse process. So basically it will try to start with the result which you want to prove, and it will try to explain its reasoning process backward until it reaches the existing set of facts and rules which are already there in the database. If it is able to reach, then it will say that okay, this was the correct result. So we have two kinds of inferencing process: forward chaining and backward chaining in an expert system. And basically the expert system architecture is based on a rule based architecture. So that is one important thing which you should remember here, students. And then we come to the applications. So expert systems have been used in process control and monitoring. For example, if you are trying to you're monitoring some industry, some plant is there, some manufacturing plant is there, and you're trying to monitor the fault diagnosis process of that plant. So from some external device or from sensors, you are getting some inputs, and you are basically your goal is to remove all erroneous data to make it a basically you should be able to analyze the data in real time, and you should be able to get a very accurate prediction of how much, suppose it's a manufacturing plant, so how much production would be in that day. So if you have a production management system or a production prediction system, that will be monitored using an expert system. Similarly, in decision management, for example, if you are doing a stock market prediction, you want to decide that whether this stock will go up or down. So that also can be done using an expert system. You can have some softwares which can use machine learning approaches or any intelligent approaches. For example, it can use some heuristic search techniques also, intelligent searching algorithms also, and these algorithms can basically predict the decisions. So it will not depend upon the kind of data you are feeding, it will depend upon only the algorithm which you are coding. So the intelligent algorithm which you have coded, that will be your expert system shell, and that will form the basis of your inference engine. And depending upon the data which you are feeding, it could be the market data, and it will predict the outcomes. So decision making is also one very good application of expert systems. Then in diagnosis and troubleshooting, for example, you are in a basically in a medical diagnosis. For example, you are trying to find out a disease. So the patterns of symptoms have got different patterns. So you can just find out the similarity of symptoms between different patients, and then you can find out that this you can do a pattern recognition and find out the disease. So, or otherwise, let us say there is an X-ray report of a patient. So just by seeing the patterns of tumors in that X-ray report, you can find out that is it a brain tumor, or is it a or is it a is it a bone tumor, something like that. So basically medical diagnosis is also one application where you can use an expert system. Basically expert system is just a general term. You can any intelligent algorithm which you use at the back end, that becomes your expert system shell, and the database can change depending upon your application. Okay, so students, don't confuse about what is an expert system. It's just a, you can say it's just a, as I told you, it's just a shell. It's just like an empty bucket where you can fill in any knowledge base, and the inference engine is also flexible. You can use any kind of inference engine. So this is a general name as an inference engine, but actually you can use any algorithm which is serving your purpose, right? So in medical diagnosis you can use it. You can use it in planning also. For example, if you have multiple goals and you want to prioritize the goals, that which these tasks are there and which task I should do first, right? So if you want to do a priority marking, that is also done by expert systems, because you can rank the basically your different tasks based upon certain intelligent algorithm. So that intelligent algorithm will use certain factors as decision variables, and then it will predict that this particular task is how much important. It will give a score to all the tasks, and then for some particular task the score will come high, For example, you can attach a heuristic function, and that heuristic function can basically give a score to each of the tasks, and then the highest scorer would be the most topmost priority task. So you should solve that task first. So this is the way you can handle planning. You can do planning also using expert systems, which task to do when. Then configuration of objects. For example, if you want to have some constraints on some objects, right? So basically, you want an answer to your query which should satisfy certain configuration. For example, if you remember in the constraint satisfaction problem when I was discussing with you, in the constraint satisfaction problem, you had a crypto-arithmetic problem. If you remember that one, you had a crypto arithmetic problem there, right? So in the crypto arithmetic problem, you had different variables, and different variables were restricted by an equation. So the equation should be satisfied. The values of the variables should be such that that equation was satisfied. For example, there was an example like sum plus sum send plus more is equal to money. That was the example, send plus more is equal to money. So that configuration was given to you, that you have to satisfy this equation, and then you needed to find the values of the variables. So that is again a constraint satisfaction problem, is again an example where you are trying to satisfy a particular configuration of objects. So that is again an application of expert systems. Then in finance, so as I told you, in finance you have basically expert systems can be used to give some advice as a banking suggestion. So which stock will go up, which stock will go down, and where you should make an investment. Depending upon different factors, you can formulate some objective function and you can get a score, and then you can tell that whether this is a profitable deal to do or a non-profitable deal to do. So it can be done again using expert systems. And then in knowledge publishing also. So knowledge publishing is a relatively new field actually. It's not being used that much, but it's a very significant area. So main function of expert system in this field is to make the knowledge accessible. So if you want relevant knowledge to get accessed, that will be done also through an expert system. For example, when you study the course information retrieval, so all of you, when you will study the course information retrieval, if you go for higher studies, because I think it's an elective course for MTech students, I don't know about BTech. So basically, if you go for information retrieval basic concepts, in that this concept is there. Basically, whenever you are given a query on Google, suppose you are typing something on Google, then how your relevant documents are retrieved. So suppose you are typing Hyderabad fort, some fort in Hyderabad, like Charminar, let us say. So when you are typing Charminar on the Google search engine, it will show you the images of Charminar, or it will give you some information on Charminar. So how these relevant web pages are retrieved? So that also is done through some intelligent algorithm at the backend. So that again is an expert system only. Okay, so that is knowledge publishing basically. So these are different applications of expert systems. Now let us discuss some specific case studies of examples of expert systems. So these are different examples of expert systems like Mycin. Mycin was basically an expert system which was the earliest expert system. This expert system was developed and it was basically used for treating blood related diseases like infections. So basically it was developed to investigate if the patient is suffering from a blood disease or not. So there were some symptoms, and there was a set of so this database was constructed, and it was having around 600 rules. And from these 600 rules, this software would ask the physician, it would ask the physician some questions. So there were 600 rules, and the software would ask the physician some questions, and the physician would answer yes or no for them. And then it will basically make a list. At the end of this question answer session, it will make a list of what all responses were generated, and then it will predict that what kind of bacteria is there in the blood, and what kind of infection has occurred. So basically it will make a list of probable bacteria and priority wise. So which is the highest probable bacteria which has caused this infection? So which is that highest probable infection, that will be on the topmost in that list. Like this, it will build a list of infections and it will give you that these are the possible diseases which can happen to you basically. So it will investigate. So there is a so Mycin, what it does is it has got an inference engine and a knowledge base of 600 rules, right? So what it does is it queries the physician running the program, and there is a long series of yes no questions, and then it finds the correct diagnosis. So how it finds the correct diagnosis? At the end, it will provide you a list of bacteria that ranging from high to low based on the probability of each bacteria. So it will give you a list that what is the infection which is highly probable to you. So that will be topmost in that list, like this. So Mycin actually there is a diagnosis probability also. So it will give you an explanation also that why it has diagnosed this particular bacteria. So it will give you an explanation of its reasoning process also. So this is also very good thing about Mycin expert system, that it can actually give you an explanation about it can actually give you an explanation that why it has diagnosed this particular result. So it will give you a reason also. So the reason why it led to rank this particular diagnosis in a particular way. So why it has ranked this particular bacteria as the topmost diagnosis. So it will give you the reason also, and then it will also suggest you the drug treatment also. So this was the earliest expert system which was used in medical field. Then we have Dendral. So Dendral is basically another early expert system, and this was used in chemistry basically. So the main application of this expert system was that it was able to find out a particular compound. Let us say it was an inorganic compound or an organic compound or any simple molecule or any substance basically. So this application was in chemistry mainly, and it was able to predict that it was able to identify that compound in any chemical substance was given to you, maybe an organic substance or an inorganic substance, and Dendral expert system was able to basically identify that compound. So again, it was a pattern recognition problem. Pattern recognition problem. You know that a pattern recognition problem is basically a machine learning problem where you have a set of input output pairs, and your machine learning algorithm or any intelligent algorithm will learn the classification process. So it will learn that if these are the set of inputs, this is the output. So it will learn some characteristics which are there and some rules it will formulate. Now this is the classification algorithm rules. It will be coded in the inference engine. Now when a new input comes, it will be able to find out the classification output for that new input. So basically, if you have learned that what are the inorganic and organic compounds, suppose this is the substance, so this is the name. Suppose that is another substance, so this is the name. So it has learned that these are the substances and these are the corresponding names. So when a new substance comes, it is able to identify it through the classification algorithm it has learned. So this is how Dendral used to identify the compounds. So basically it used to study the mass spectrum, or there was some spectrum of each compound. It used to identify through the spectrum of each compound. So it used to find out the patterns in the spectrums and then identify. Then there was Shine. Shine was another expert system. It was a software tool developed by the AI group. So this was a group at NASA actually, and it was an important expert system. Basically, it was coded in C and C++ only. This was a good point about Shine. Shine was coded in C and C++ only, and it had got a very good reasoning capability. Reasoning capability means that it was able to explain its reasoning process to the users. So it was able to explain why it led to a particular solution. It was able to explain its reasoning process also. And then it was using some sophisticated data structures for creating the knowledge base. So this knowledge base it was creating for the inference engine to work on. It was using some sophisticated data structures for creating that knowledge base. And then there was some quick computation daemons. Daemons are basically some background processes. So what is a daemon? Daemon is basically some background process which is running in the background of a system and it is performing some activity. So for some spontaneous result, if you want it, this daemon will always be working. So daemon is a background process which is always working in the background. So if you want some spontaneous answer, it has a facility that it will immediately produce the result. So this was a quick computation daemon facility was also present in Shine. Overall, it was an optimizing compiler based system. So it was basically the efficiency and performance was very high in the case of Shine, and it was an optimized compiler based system. So the compiler was basically highly optimal compiler, and it was able to produce very good results. So this was basically a third expert system. Then we had fuzzy clips. So basically we had different categories of expert systems which were designed for different applications, right? So you had, for example, Mycin was there for medical applications. Dendral was there for identifying a chemical compound. Shine was there for artificial intelligence, very critical applications of artificial intelligence. Then we had fuzzy clips also. Fuzzy clips, clips is this clips meaning is basically clips stand for this C language integrated production system. Clips means C language integrated production system. So fuzzy clips, fuzzy C language integrated production system. So it was again built by NASA. So this was a fuzzy logic based system, which was this was an expert system shell which was built by NASA, and in this basically you the main purpose was to improve the C language. So in the C language, or it was basically having some fuzzy logic applied to it. Now, what is fuzzy logic actually? On a broader scale, I'll tell you what is fuzzy logic. Suppose you are saying that today is hot or today is cold, right? Weather of today. Let us say weather of today is only two possibilities, hot or cold. So this is Boolean logic, okay, where there are only two possible values, true or false, whether it is hot or not hot. Okay, so that is Boolean logic. Fuzzy logic is when you can have intermediate values also between 0 and 1. So it is not 0 and 1, it can have intermediate values also. For example, I can have the values of weather like this. I cannot say that weather is hot or not hot. I can also say that weather is warm, weather is uh, weather is cold, weather is very cold, weather is normal, weather is humid, weather is sunny, like this. Basically, I can have different levels of telling the same different values which I can give to that particular variable. It's not that I can give only two values to that particular variable. For example, if I say hot or not hot, that is a Boolean logic. Fuzzy logic is I can have different kinds of values. I can have different degrees, that I can say that hot, very hot, less hot, not hot. I can have 4 or 5 different values for the same variable. So that is fuzzy logic. Fuzzy logic means you do not have only a Boolean logic, you do not have only a Boolean variable, you have multiple values which you can. So that means you can represent the variable even more accurately, because you can represent the information nicely in a fuzzy logic. So fuzzy logic was integrated in the C language in this fuzzy clips system. So basically you were improving the features of the C language by presenting some reasoning mechanism. So you were able to explain your reasoning process also in this fuzzy clips expert system. So how the C language is producing the results, what is the reasoning behind that? Using fuzzy logic, you were able to tell that what is the different, what are the different basically when your results were coming, then you were able to explain your results in a better way using this fuzzy logic. I will give you another example which will help you to relate it more actually. See, in this fuzzy clips, you are using fuzzy logic. For example, we had done the water jug problem. If you remember, we had done the water jug problem. So in the water jug problem, you had certain production rules, right? Now, if I make some changes in my water jug problem such that I can add some more rules to it. So, and I can explain my reasoning process in a better way. So that will become a system where you have integrated fuzzy logic. So basically you can add more rules using fuzzy logic. So basically you can make modifications to your set of facts. So you can make modifications to your set of facts. So whatever set of facts or rules you are already having, you can add to those rules some rules which are basically fuzzy in nature. So those rules will also identify different variables, different values of variables in addition to only two values. So that will basically add on to the rules of a production system. For example, in your water jug problem also, you can add on different rules in that production system based upon which are fuzzy in nature, which don't have two values. If you assume that there are more than two values, so if you assume that a particular variable can have more than two values, then you can add on different states and therefore you will have different rules also. So in this way, you can increase your production system. So so basically this fuzzy clips was main purpose was to improve that particular set of rules which are already existing, to add on to those rules and refine our knowledge base. Then we had OpenKBM. So OpenKBM was another expert system, and this KBM stands for Knowledge Management Techniques. So this KBM stands for Knowledge Management Techniques. OpenKBM was developed and used basically by IBM. This IBM was basically responsible for you. It was majorly using this as a tool for managing the software applications. So this OpenKBM, as the name suggests, it is basically for knowledge management. So it was used to refine your process of storing your data in the database of knowledge. For example, when your data is there in your when you are storing your data in the knowledge base, so that data can be stored in the form of basically in the form of a semantic network or a frame or basically a conceptual dependency. So depending upon which notation or which representation is good for us, you will basically try to represent the objects and the events or the relationships between the objects. So if you want to represent the correlation between different objects or different events, then which kind of structure you should use for representing that knowledge? That is basically one thing here. And then how do you process your data? So different data mining techniques. Different data mining techniques are also coming under knowledge, this open KBM. Data mining techniques like you are refining your data, you are processing your data, you are cleansing your data, you are removing some redundant data, right? You are removing the redundant data and then you are making the data more refined. You are, if you are having some missing data, then you are filling up the missing data also. So that is basically data mining. So data mining also you apply to process the data, and then you organize the data using different structures which you have studied. So this is main purpose of OpenKBM. OpenKBM is basically used to deal with knowledge management. How do you manage the knowledge in the knowledge base? And then we have eGanges. So eGanges here, the full form of eGanges is electronic glossed adversarial nested graphical expert system. So the full form of this is electronic glossed adversarial nested graphical expert system. So it's basically another expert system which is basically based upon the mechanism. It's basically used in education. This kind of expert system is basically used in education and quality control management. For example, it is based on the mechanism of syllogism. Student syllogism is basically a concept. It's based on the predicate logic concepts only. Syllogism means that if you have two premises, two conditions are there, and you want to reach a conclusion, right? So basically, if the two premises, or you can say the two conditions are true, then the final condition will also be true. Basically, there are two premises, and given these two premises, you can conclude something. So that is syllogism. Syllogism is again deductive learning only. Syllogism also comes under deductive learning. So this eGanges is based on syllogism. Syllogism means if two premises are true, then the conclusion will also be true. So basically it will give your answer in terms of three answers: positive, negative, or an uncertain answer. So basically it will if you are it will give you the result in three forms: positive, negative, or an uncertain answer. For example, if you are using it in education, right? So given two particular premises, can you conclude something? For example, in education, if you want to use it, so if you say that the students marks are less than 40 and he has not given the NSEM exam also, let us say, I'm just taking an example like that. Suppose I say that the students marks are less than 40, right? And then he has not given the NSEM exam. So then it will mean that he will fail, right? So these are the two premises which are leading to a conclusion that he will fail. So like this, you can build a different set of premises and you can conclude some things. So this is called a syllogism mechanism. It is also deductive learning only. And here also you have the premises and a conclusion. So if the two premises are true, then your conclusion is also true. So the complexity is not a concern here. That is why we use syllogism. Any kind of deduction, if you want to make for different kinds of premises, and even large, long size of premises. If there are 100 premises and you want to make some conclusion, still it will work. So this expert system had a main characteristic of this expert system was that it could work with a large size of syllogism. It could work with large size and it could apply syllogism in those cases also. Then finally we had Caduceus. This was built over Mycin. So this was another medical expert system which was built over Mycin, and it was built during the 1980s. And the main objective was to improve upon Mycin. So here there were around 1,000 rules. In Mycin there were 600 rules, but here there were 1,000 rules. And therefore it was kind of better, and it also used to focus on some internal diseases also. So instead of only blood-borne diseases like bacteria, in Mycin it was just telling you that what bacteria is there in your blood. So that means what kind of blood infection you have. In Caduceus, it was focusing on some internal diseases also, and it was able to predict those diseases also. So it would conduct the investigations of about there were around many rules were possible, and therefore it was basically a more sophisticated expert system than Mycin. So it was kind of a very knowledgeable expert system. So these were different expert systems which were already developed, right? These were already developed expert systems. And then I would like to tell you about some things which are done in agriculture these days. So this was which has already happened in the past, maybe in the 1990s or 2000s, right? Or in the 1990s to 2000 it was done. So these were already available expert systems which were used for different tasks, right? Now, what are the currently available expert systems which are right now or currently being used? So these are some things which I would like to tell you students, because this is quite interesting. So let us try to understand some of these. So in agriculture, so agriculture was a very good application. It's a very good application these days also for farmers, because it can help the farmers in decision making. What expert systems can do for that? So basically an expert system can help the farmers to decide which crop to grow on a particular terrain, right? For example, I have given a information of a land of a farmer, the farm of a farmer, and this particular expert system, seeing the terrain of the farmer, can it predict that which crop will be good for the farmer to grow in this field, and which crop will give a better yield or a better profit? So basically that is done through expert systems. If you are able to do that, then it will be a major advantage for the agriculture, right? It will be a major advantage for the agriculture sector. So so basically to extend the support to farmers in decision making. So like a human expert, you are telling that this farm you can grow this crop. So in this farm you can grow this crop. This would be suggested by a human expert. Can you replace the human expert by an expert system, which is an artificial intelligence system? If you can do so, it will be a major benefit to the agriculture sector of our country, right? So, and even you can use it as a delivery service for spreading information. So, for example, expert systems can be used to create a network where you can basically where you can spread that information, whatever you have decided, whatever decision you have given, the decision can be networked to different farmers which are basically using the same kind of fields or same kind of farm. So basically, if that particular decision is relevant to a particular farm and another farm is having similar characteristics to that farm, then that decision would be applicable to other farm also, right? For example, if I say that wheat is good for this particular farm, right? Now if another farm is there which is having similar crop growing conditions, then that particular farm will also grow wheat, right? that will be advantageous to that particular farm. Similarly for rice, let us say rice requires a lot of water, right? So if you are having a lot of water in a particular field, then you can suggest that you can grow rice here. Now if there is another field which has got also a lot of water, then you can suggest rice for that also. So that particular decision can be used for different inputs which are of similar characteristics. So that is how you can spread the same information, and it can basically help the farmers in a faster way. And even to provide education to farmers, you can use an expert system which can interact with the farmers directly. You can have a mobile application which can interact with the farmers directly. So you can spread the education to farmers because you can give the information readily using that mobile app. And then you can disseminate the latest knowledge in an easy format to research practitioners. So not even to farmers, whatever people are researching in agriculture, those people also can be given this information through an expert system, and they can pass it over to the farmers. So this is the main thing of how expert systems can be used in agriculture. And students, you have a class right now at 12 o'clock. Do you have a class now, or can I continue? Divya, are you there, Divya? You have a class now, Divya, 12 o'clock. Okay, fine. So, okay, if you have a class, then we will stop here. And I basically want to give you a glimpse of some real world expert system also. So, in the next class, I'll show you an example of a real world expert system, which is basically one of my proposals, which I have submitted to the for funding to a government. So, I'll show you some screenshots of that expert system so that you can understand that how it looks like actually. Okay, so that we will this expert systems in the next class. Then we will start with natural language processing. So our next class will be on Monday at the same time, 2 o'clock. And Divya, please take the attendance. Done? Okay, thank you. You can mail me the attendance. Fine, students, we'll meet on Monday and we'll continue about this. Okay, thank you.